Hello and welcome back, besties. My name is Madeline and I review whatever every single Tuesday, mostly. Today we're going to be talking about the much anticipated A Court of Silver Flames by Sarah J. Maas. Oh my god. Oh my god. This book is the newest installment in the A Court of Thorn and Roses series, which I am obsessed with. If you haven't read the book yet, please don't listen. I'm about to get into spoilers, but just know this book is amazing and you should read it. After you've read it, of course, come back and visit me and this video again, and then we can talk about it. Okay, the first thing I want to do is talk about my reading experience with this book. I put it off for a couple months just because I was so nervous and we don't know when the next book is coming out, so I wanted to savor it. But I also I love the original ACOSF series, so it's scary for me to add a book because what if it's not as good? But I'm happy to say this book was as good, so everything is fine. I did think that the story progressed a little slowly in the beginning, but once you get to page 500, the last 250 pages are just a freaking roller coaster ride, one thing after another, literally wild. So you just have to hold out till that point. I promise it will pay off. I did get lost a couple times when they were talking about kind of the more ancient Fae history with the High King. So I'm thinking that's going to come up again, but I don't quite understand it as of right now. The blood rite totally gave me Hunger Games vibes, so I loved that. I thought it was really interesting that the whole thing with Feyre's pregnancy and Rice being bonded to her, so they'll die at the same time, and then baby Nyx. That whole drama took a backseat in this story, which was really weird because the last stories, obviously, that would have been, the central drama if it was still in Feyre's perspective, so it was weird to just have that on the periphery. When it came up again at the end, I was like, this is bananas. How is this gonna have a happy ending? I thought this book was so impressive just in that so much happens, an unbelievable amount happens in the last 250 pages, and it was all these loose threads. How are they gonna happen? How's this gonna get resolved? There's Nesta and Cassian's love story, there's Feyre's pregnancy, there is the stuff with the other countries, there's the stuff with the other courts, there's stuff with Eris, there's this trove of magical items. I mean, it just goes on and on. It was how is this gonna end? And then it does, and everything gets resolved. Now I want to touch on a couple of the characters, starting with Eris. I love Eris. I'm intrigued by him. I, of course, want him to defeat his father and take over the Autumn Court. I think he's really an interesting character, and I can't wait to learn more about him. I'm also curious why he wanted to marry Nesta, other than that she's a great dancer and all that stuff, but it seems like he needed to be married, and I don't know why, and I would love to find out. Maybe if he's married, he'll have an easier time producing an heir and taking his dad out. I don't know, but I just thought that was kind of interesting. Next, I want to talk about Mor. I thought it was very weird she was MIA. I'm wondering if the next novella is going to be about her and what she's doing while she's off doing things. I also am just getting really sick of Mor because Cassian, as we experience in this book, he feels so guilty about what happened. And obviously something happened with Eris that Mor is not telling them. Eris doesn't want to tell them because it'd be betraying Mor's trust, it seems like. But I don't know, it just doesn't sit right with me that she's letting Cassian feel guilty and she's letting Azriel feel heartbroken and all this stuff. She just needs to clear things up for the sake of her friends. She doesn't have to tell the whole world, but she really does need to come clean. Next, let's talk about Elaine. Unpopular opinion, I really like Elaine. She's made some mistakes, but I think she's really interesting, and I kind of relate to her being kind of meek and mild, so I'm very interested to see what happens with that. I also thought it was really interesting that Nesta and Cassian had a conversation about Elaine and talking about how her loyalty works and how much is she actually observing. It seems like she's oblivious, but how much is she actually seeing? And then we have another conversation in the extended scene with Feyre and Rysand where they're talking about what is Elaine going to be like now and she can be herself. So I'm really interested to see how her character develops. No one knows, but it should be really interesting to see. I also know there's a lot of controversy. Should Elaine be with Azriel? Should Azriel be with Gwen? Should Elaine be with Lucian? There's a lot of... it's all up in the air. I don't know. But I will say I thought it was a little weird that Nesta didn't change Elaine's anatomy when she changed her and Feyre's. so that Elaine and Azriel could have kids, but on the other hand, maybe they're not kids type people, so that doesn't really say anything at all. Next I want to talk about Gwen and Emery. Of course I love them. I loved all the girl power moments. I love the Valkyries. I love the book. I love Gwen a lot. I did read a theory about like an evil Gwen, but I don't think so. Something else though that's interesting is I feel like we know Gwen a lot more than we know Emery. So I'm curious to learn more about Emery because I just feel like we know Gwen so much better. Of course, we have to talk about Nesta. I will say I think I relate more to Feyre, so I enjoyed reading the books in Feyre's perspective more. It was a little rough to read in Nesta's perspective just with all the crap she's going through, but having said that, like Emery and Gwen said, everyone's story does deserve to get told, and I'm so glad that Nesta was able to tell her story. I also thought it was interesting how many parallels are drawn between Nesta and other characters. Firstly, Nesta draws a parallel between herself and Tamlin, which is very unexpected, and also made me think maybe Tamlin will be getting a redemption arc. But secondly, the way that Nesta resists saying that she's in love with Cassian and flips out when she finds out they're mates, even though she's in love with him, really called back to A Court of Mist and Fury when Feyre does the same thing with Rhysand. And I just thought that was really interesting. And then also the fact that Nesta loves to dance and loves music. Hello, that's as Archeron's sister as you can get. So that was really interesting as well. Nesta and Cassian definitely give me Emmett and Rosalie vibes, but like more developed Emmett and Rosalie, and I love that. I also really love Nesta's understanding with Azriel. They dance together at the ball. Azriel seems to kind of get her. They have that conversation at the winter solstice party about Elaine. And also when Azriel gives Nesta that present at the winter solstice and she gives him a big hug, like it was just so sweet and I love it. Something else that I thought was really special about this book is the bond that Nesta seemed to have with the mother, who ended up giving Nesta part of her powers back, even though part of the bargain was that she'd get rid of her cauldron powers if she could save Feyre. Now I want to talk about some moments that literally just touched me in my heart to my soul. Like, I thought these were the sweetest things. Number one is Mor teaching Cass how to like ballroom waltz in secret. Like, that's so sweet. Cassian is so thoughtful. Like, he truly is. I also really loved Nesta's relationship with the house. She made the house to be her friend, and that is about the coolest thing I've ever heard. And then when Rhysand gives her the house for her wedding, like, the whole entire winter solstice party, every single thing that happened, I was in love with it. Like, it was just a love fest. Like, I loved every single thing about it, and just the contrast between that winter solstice party and the winter solstice party in the last novella was just astonishing. And I'm so glad we got to find out what the present that Cassian got Nesta last year was. That was amazing. I can't believe he just threw such a priceless book into the ocean, or into the Sidra. Like, I can't even believe he did that, but I'll try to forgive him. The sleepover with the Valkyries where they made the friendship bracelets. That seems so fun. I would have killed to go to that party. Of course, when we find out Nesta and Cassian are mates, obviously that was so sweet, and in classic them style, it comes out while they're fighting, so I loved that for them. But the part that really got me the most is when Feyre's dying and Nesta literally stops time and just goes over to Feyre and tells her how much she loves her, and then Nesta like is willing to sacrifice all this power so that Feyre and her like son can live. And when Nesta finally accepts Rhysand as like her brother, like that part just killed me. Like, I sobbed. It was so meaningful. As someone with a sister, the idea of like being estranged from my sister is just, I can't imagine. So it was just so meaningful and so heartfelt. They were finally able to like come together like that, and for Nesta to finally be able to save the day and take control back, I just thought that was the most powerful thing I've ever read. Okay, I do want to talk about two moments that I thought were so funny, because there were several things in this book I thought were so funny. The first one is when Lucien gives Elaine like pearl earrings, I think, for winter solstice, and she's like, thanks. And like, that just for some reason was so funny to me. Like, poor Lucien, rip Lucien. I feel so bad for him. And then the second thing that I thought was so funny is when Nesta accidentally is like, F off, Elaine. Like, are you kidding? That's hilarious. Like, I literally laughed out loud when I got to that part. And lastly, I want to talk about a couple of theories for further books in the series. This whole time, I've kind of been wondering like if Lucien's gonna die, and that's how Elaine and Lucien's like mating bond's gonna go. And that's kind of what I was thinking was maybe gonna happen, except now that people ship Asriel with Gwen, I'm kind of wondering if Elaine is gonna die. And that would like bring everyone together, because obviously the Night Court would be upset by that. But also like Lucian and Vassa and Jurian would be upset by that. It would really bring everyone together. But at the same time, if there was some kind of war, like what could possibly stand against Nesta and Rysand as a united front? Like what could present a threat to that? So I'm curious about that. Also, I don't know if you guys have read any theories online, but there is a theory about the mountains that's really compelling, and basically it's how there's 3 mountains and 3 Archeron sisters. Feyre's story takes place a lot under the mountain, and then Nesta's story takes place on Ramiel's peak when she climbs it. So it's like, okay, that's 2 mountains, and then the 3rd mountain's the prison. So is Elaine gonna have something to do with the prison? That would be fascinating. And then also there's this theory about 8 courts, because there's an 8-sided star on Nesta's back, and there does seem to be some kind of court in the prison, perhaps the Dusk Court? I don't know, like the counterbalance of the Dawn Court? I don't know. It's kind of compelling. I think it might be real. We'll have to wait and see, obviously. I'm very curious what's under Ramiel Mountain, because there is stuff under all the other mountains, so also curious about that. I really like the Balthazar guy that's introduced in the Blood Rite, and I think he'll come up again. I'm wondering if he's going to become like the new leadership of the Illyrians, who's like less corrupt, because I would totally 100% stan Balthazar if that's what he did. I'm curious how Miss Sarah J. Maas is going to be able to wrap up this series in just a few more books, because at the bare minimum, I feel like we need a Moore book, an Eris book, a Lucian book, an Asriel book, an Elaine book, maybe a Tamlin book, maybe another Faysand book. I don't know. But we need a lot more content in order to wrap up all these storylines, and I just don't know how it's going to happen in a timely manner. As always, thank you so much for watching this video. I don't know anyone in real life who's read this book yet. Michael, I'm talking to you if you're seeing this, and I need people to talk to me about this book or I'm gonna explode. So if you want to talk about it, please leave a comment below and I will for sure respond. Thank you for watching. Please like, comment, subscribe, and share. It means a lot to me, and I hope you have a great day. Kesta. Like, a lot of controversy in a court of